Welcome to Zoe Stories. My wife transformed me into a girl. The grand estate was quiet, except for the occasional creak of old wooden floors. Ethan had inherited the family manor from distant relatives, a sprawling, slightly eerie house on the outskirts of town. Its high ceilings and winding corridors carried the echo of footsteps, and its antique furniture seemed to watch him as he moved. At 34, Ethan was careful, methodical, but this place had a way of stirring feelings he couldn't control. Isabella had insisted they spend the weekend here alone. She called it a retreat, but something in her tone suggested more than relaxation. The manor was perfect for hiding secrets. It had rooms no one used, closets deep enough to conceal whole wardrobes. Ethan's heart quickened as he stepped into the attic, a space dusted with old curtains and forgotten mirrors. This was his sanctuary for transformation, far from prying eyes, far from judgment. Crossdressing wasn't casual for him. It was a careful ritual, a mixture of thrill and fear that only deepened in a place like this. Silk stockings rolled smoothly up his legs, a soft blouse brushed against his skin, and a skirt hugged his hips in a way that made him shiver. He brushed on makeup with precision, each stroke transforming not only his reflection but his inner self. The wig he placed on his head completed the illusion, delicate, feminine, undeniably captivating. He paused in front of the large, dusty mirror at the attic's far corner. The candlelight flickered across the glass, casting shadows that blurred the line between reality and fantasy. The reflection staring back at him was someone else, someone freer, someone Isabella had no idea existed. And yet, he felt a pulse of anxiety. What if she walked in? What if this private world ended tonight? The footsteps came sooner than expected. Light taps on the old wooden stairs, deliberate and measured. Isabella appeared at the attic doorway, her presence commanding, her gaze sharp. She didn't speak at first. She simply observed him, her eyes tracing every curve, every detail of his transformation. "You've been hiding this from me," she said finally, her voice calm but layered with meaning. "And now I get to see it." Ethan's pulse raced. It's just something I do," he started, but his voice faltered under her steady stare. She stepped closer, every movement deliberate, almost predatory. "I know," she said softly, "and I think it's time we explore it together." Her words didn't come as judgment or ridicule. They carried a weight, a promise, and an unspoken command. Ethan felt a shiver of fear and excitement crawl down his spine. The manor suddenly felt smaller, every shadow a witness, every mirror a reminder of his vulnerability. He moved carefully, aware of how every gesture could reveal more than intended. The high heels pressed into his feet, the skirt brushed his thighs, the blouse clung to him in a way that made him both exposed and alive. And through it all, Isabella's presence was magnetic, an invisible tether pulling him towards something he couldn't name. "You look beautiful," she murmured, brushing a stray lock of hair from his face. "But I want to see more. I want to see the real you, the one hiding behind the clothes and mirrors." In that moment, Ethan realized the game had changed. His secret, long protected and cherished, was now exposed, but not threatened. Instead, it was invited, tested, amplified by Isabella's curiosity and quiet control. Every instinct screamed caution, every hidden desire urged him forward. The manor, with its empty halls and observing antiques, became a stage. And Ethan, part man, part secret self, stood at the center, caught between fear, thrill, and a dangerous, intoxicating anticipation of what was about to unfold. This weekend wouldn't just be about retreat. It would be about transformation, discovery, and the unraveling of a life he thought he understood. Isabella's intentions were clear, and he knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. And that was just the beginning. The attic smelled faintly of old wood and dust, but beneath that, there was something else. Something sharp, intoxicating. Ethan's pulse raced as Isabella leaned casually against the doorway, watching him. Her presence felt like a quiet storm, both alluring and dangerous. "Sit," she said softly, gesturing to a cushioned chair by the mirror. There was no command in her tone, only authority. Ethan obeyed immediately, the skirt brushing his knees, his heels pressing lightly into the carpet. Isabella knelt beside him, pulling out a small box from her bag. "I brought something," she said. Ethan's eyes widened as she revealed a set of high-quality makeup, brushes, and a wig far more realistic than any he had owned. She lifted a strand, letting it fall over her fingers. "This will help you fully become her," she whispered, her words sending a shiver down his spine. His mind spun. Fully become her? Was she asking him to give himself over completely? He glanced at the mirror, at the reflection he had barely recognized before, soft, delicate, undeniably feminine. The thought of transforming further, under her guidance, both terrified and thrilled him. "Do you trust me?" Isabella asked, her eyes locking onto his. There was no room for evasion. He nodded, heart hammering. She smiled. "Good. Then, let's begin." She started with gentle strokes, applying foundation, highlighting cheekbones, contouring his jaw. Every touch was precise, intimate, and invasive in a way that made him acutely aware of his own body. His fingers twitched, craving the textures he had always loved, the soft brushes, the smooth creams, but hesitated, caught in the vulnerability of being watched. "You're more beautiful than you realize," she murmured. Her voice was a mix of amusement and control, like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Ethan felt warmth rise to his cheeks, part shame, part pride. Next came the wig. Isabella carefully adjusted it, tugging lightly at his own hair to make it blend seamlessly. When the long, dark strands settled around his shoulders, he hardly recognized himself. He tilted his head, observing the transformation in the mirror. His reflection wasn't just feminine, it was magnetic. "Do you see her?" Isabella asked softly. Ethan nodded, unable to speak. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "She's strong, confident, and beautiful. All of this." She gestured to the clothes, the makeup, the wig. "It's just the beginning." The skirt, the stockings, the heels, they all became more than fabric and leather. They were symbols of his vulnerability and power combined, each piece forcing him to confront the secret desire he had hidden for years. The room seemed smaller now, tighter, charged with tension, every shadow a spectator to the unfolding transformation. Isabella circled him slowly, observing his reactions to each movement. "Your posture is off," she said with a smirk, guiding his shoulders back, adjusting the tilt of his head. Every instruction felt invasive yet intimate, like she was weaving a spell that he could neither resist nor escape. Ethan's mind raced. The thrill of crossdressing alone had always been satisfying, but with her here, watching, guiding, judging, it became something entirely different. He felt exposed and powerful at once, every nerve ending alight with sensation. A sudden sound from the manor, a door creaking somewhere below, made him jump. Isabella glanced toward the attic entrance, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You're not alone here," she murmured. The reminder of the estate's vast, empty halls, with its hidden corners and echoing floors, made every movement feel precarious, as if a single misstep could reveal everything. Ethan shivered, adjusting his skirt nervously. Isabella noticed. "Don't be afraid," she said, her tone softening. "Fear heightens everything. Your senses are sharper, your reactions faster. You'll need it." Her words hit him like a spark. The manor, the shadows, the quiet intimacy of the attic, it all pressed in, forcing him to confront the tension he had always felt when crossdressing alone. But now, it wasn't just a personal thrill. It was a challenge, a test, a game with stakes higher than he had ever imagined. As she applied the final touches of lipstick, Isabella leaned close, letting him feel the warmth of her breath. "You're ready," she whispered. "Now it's time to step fully into her and see how it feels to be completely exposed and completely free." Ethan's reflection stared back at him, beautiful, delicate, and trembling with anticipation. The journey had begun, and in the quiet, shadowed attic of the manor, with Isabella's eyes on him, He realized that nothing in his life would ever feel ordinary again. Ethan's legs trembled as he rose from the chair, adjusting the skirt nervously. The heels clicked softly on the attic floor, a sound that seemed louder than it should be in the quiet, empty manor. Every movement felt amplified, deliberate, as if the house itself were watching. Isabella remained still, her eyes sharp, studying him as he took tentative steps toward the full-length mirror. "Walk toward it," she instructed, voice calm, measured. "Feel how she moves. Balance, poise, presence." He obeyed, shuffling at first, his body unsure of the unfamiliar contours and pressure of his clothes. The stockings clung to his legs, the heels forced his posture straight, and the skirt brushed his thighs with every step. Panic flickered in his chest, but beneath it was a thrill he hadn't anticipated. This time, he wasn't alone. Isabella's gaze held him accountable, guiding every motion, her presence both comforting and terrifying. "Not like that," she said, stepping closer. Her hand lightly pressed on his back, correcting the tilt of his shoulders. "Relax your arms. Let them flow naturally. You're not hiding anymore. You're her." Ethan swallowed, muscles tense. Her words were gentle, but they carried weight, commanding him to surrender. And surrender he did, not just to her instructions, but to the persona he had always kept locked away. The reflection in the mirror began to shift, not just physically, but emotionally. The woman staring back at him wasn't simply a reflection, she was alive. He turned slowly, glancing over his shoulder, practicing the sway Isabella had demonstrated. His initial awkwardness melted into something more fluid, though it required conscious effort with each step. Isabella watched, nodding approvingly. "Better. Now let her out. Don't think about yourself. Be her entirely." The phrase "be her entirely" lingered in his mind. It was more than a suggestion. It was a challenge. He let his body move with intention, his mind opening to the experience. The heels pressed into his arches, forcing him upright, elegant. The skirt flowed naturally as he walked. The wig framed his face, softening features he had always considered plain. Isabella circled him again, her eyes tracing every line, every shift in posture. "Confidence comes from within," she said. "But you have to act it out. Even if you're afraid, even if you feel exposed. The world sees what you show it." The attic seemed to shrink around him, walls closing in, shadows deepening. The manor's vast, empty spaces below suddenly felt threatening, as if a sound from the lower halls could undo all of this. Every creak, every whisper of wind through the old windows reminded him of the stakes. "Stop thinking," Isabella whispered. She reached out, adjusting his skirt with a delicate touch, smoothing the fabric over his hips. "Feel her. Become her. The rest doesn't matter." Ethan's chest tightened. Being watched, being corrected, being guided, it was overwhelming. Yet, at the same time, a part of him delighted in it. This wasn't just crossdressing anymore. It was transformation under fire, a test of courage, identity, and control. Every fiber of his being was alive to the challenge. "Good," Isabella said, stepping back. "Now, I want you to speak." He froze. Speak? The voice he had practiced in the mirror alone, the softer, melodic voice he used when pretending, felt exposed under her gaze. His throat constricted. I'm ready," he murmured, barely above a whisper. "Louder," she urged, her smile teasing but commanding. "You are her. Let her voice come through." He inhaled sharply, forcing himself to channel the persona fully. The sound was higher, softer, undeniably feminine. The echo in the attic made it sound strange, foreign, yet intoxicating. He glanced at the mirror again. The woman reflected there seemed real, commanding, alive. She belonged to this space now. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and Ethan jumped. Isabella's eyes sparkled.
"See?
Fear heightens everything.
Keep her steady."
Confidence is born from tension, not comfort. He nodded, swallowing hard. The fear, the thrill, the attention. It was a cocktail he hadn't experienced in this intensity. Each correction, Each gesture from Isabella pushed him further into the transformation. He was no longer just Ethan hiding in the shadows. He was someone new, someone vulnerable and daring. "You're ready for the next step," Isabella said, stepping closer. "But it's not just about appearance. It's about movement, expression, owning her in every way." Ethan's heart raced. What did she mean by every way? The manor felt larger suddenly, the shadows deeper, the stakes higher. But something inside him leaned forward, compelled to continue, to surrender fully. He wanted to see how far he could go, how completely he could become her under Isabella's watchful eye. She reached for a pair of gloves, smooth and black, delicate yet firm. "Try these," she instructed, sliding them over his hands. The sensation was strange, but exhilarating, restricting yet empowering. Every detail matters. Every gesture, every touch, every glance. She is perfection, and you will be her. Ethan's reflection in the mirror was unrecognizable now. The careful combination of blouse, skirt, stockings, heels, wig, and makeup had created a complete transformation. But it wasn't just the physical change, it was emotional. Every corrected posture, every measured step, every soft word from Isabella had stripped away layers of hesitation, leaving raw, exposed confidence shimmering beneath vulnerability. "You're doing well," Isabella murmured. "But remember, the manor is full of secrets. And secrets have a way of revealing themselves when you least expect it. Are you ready to see how she moves when the world, or at least this house, tests her?" Ethan's pulse quickened. The attic, the heels, the mirrors, the attention, it all felt dangerous, electrifying. This wasn't just practice anymore. It was a preparation for challenge, exposure, and perhaps discovery. And deep down, he knew that Isabella's guidance wasn't gentle indulgence. It was the start of something far more intense, far more transformative. The manor's hallways stretched endlessly, shadows dancing along the walls as candlelight flickered in the sconces. Isabella's heels clicked softly on the polished floor, a steady rhythm that Ethan tried to match, but his own steps felt foreign in the delicate shoes. The attic had been a safe zone, controlled and private. This was different, public within the manor, exposed to possibility. "Follow me," Isabella said, voice crisp and commanding. There was no question in her tone, only expectation. Ethan felt the thrill tighten in his chest. He wasn't just transforming for himself anymore. He was performing under her scrutiny, in a space that felt unpredictable. They reached the drawing room, a cavernous space with towering windows and an ornate chandelier. Dust motes floated in the air, catching the candlelight like tiny stars. Isabella stopped in the center of the room, turning to face him fully. "This is your next test," she said. "Move through this space as her. Own every step, every gesture, every glance." Ethan swallowed. The room felt massive, almost intimidating. Every shadow seemed to watch, every creaking floorboard a potential betrayer. He adjusted the skirt instinctively, the heels pressing firmly into his feet. His reflection in a nearby mirror made him flinch. There she was, delicate and feminine, yet hesitant, vulnerable. "You hesitate," Isabella said sharply, stepping closer. "Confidence comes from conviction. Let her take over. Not half, all of her. Understand?" He nodded, heart hammering. He had rehearsed alone countless times, but never under her gaze, never with the threat of discovery looming. Every movement became a delicate balancing act, the sway of the hips, the tilt of the head, the placement of the hands. The manner amplified his awareness. A dropped candle, a misplaced foot, any sound could betray him. Isabella walked beside him, occasionally adjusting a shoulder, a wrist, a tilt of the chin. Her touches were light, deliberate, and deeply intimate. Ethan's body responded automatically, muscles learning the rhythm of femininity through her guidance. But with each correction, each movement, a part of him quivered, not from fear alone, but from vulnerability. "Good," she said, stepping back.
Now speak.
"Tell me how she feels in this space. Use your voice to claim her." He hesitated. His voice, though refined in the attic, felt fragile here, in the openness of the room. He inhaled, letting the persona take hold, shaping his words with deliberate softness and rhythm. I feel the wear, he said, faltering slightly. Exposed but free. Isabella's lips curved into a satisfied smile.
Yes.
That freedom comes from embracing the risk. The moment you feel it, you'll understand her fully. She guided him toward the grand mirror on the far wall. Its gilded frame caught the candlelight, throwing reflections of the room back at them. Ethan's reflection multiplied, layered, fragmented, each angle showing a different aspect of the transformation. He saw strength in the curve of his waist, elegance in the tilt of his head, vulnerability in the eyes that gazed back. A sudden noise, a floorboard groaning from the wing below, made him jump. His body froze, the heels threatening to betray him. Isabella's eyes sharpened. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," he whispered. "Good. Notice it. Feel it. Let it heighten her awareness." Her words were precise, almost surgical. Every instinct to hide or panic was redirected into performance, into becoming. Fear became a tool, shaping posture, gestures, and presence. The next test was subtle but intense. Isabella handed him a delicate fan, an ornate accessory he had never used before. "Use it," she instructed. "Let her personality shine through it. Every movement is a message." Ethan took it with trembling fingers. The first flick of the wrist felt awkward, unnatural. But Isabella's gaze didn't waver.
Again.
And again.
Faster.
Slower. Each time, she emerges more fully. By the 10th repetition, he was fluid, confident, alive. The persona wasn't just in his appearance. It coursed through his movements, through his reactions, through every glance in the mirror. The fan became a tool of expression, a symbol of control and vulnerability intertwined. A sudden draft swept through the room, rattling the chandelier slightly. Ethan froze, heart leaping. Isabella's eyes glinted in the candlelight. "Every space has observers," she said. "Even empty rooms. You never know who or what is watching. That's part of the thrill." The manor felt alive now. Every creak, shadow, and flicker intensifying the challenge. He wasn't just practicing femininity. He was being tested, forced to inhabit it under pressure, under scrutiny, under suspense. Each step, each sway, each gesture had weight beyond his control. By the time Isabella signaled the end of the exercise, Ethan was trembling. Not from the exertion, but from exhilaration. The woman in the mirror had become real, tangible, commanding. And yet, beneath the thrill lay fear, the knowledge that any misstep in this vast, shadowed manor could undo everything, exposing him in a way he had never experienced before. "You're progressing," Isabella murmured, brushing a hand lightly along his arm. "But the manor isn't done testing you. The real challenge comes when control slips, when fear rises, and when secrets start whispering." Ethan's heartbeat quickened. This was no longer practice. It was a journey into vulnerability, submission, and transformation that would push him farther than he had ever imagined. And somewhere deep in his chest, he realized he wanted it. Terrifying as it was, he wanted it more than anything. The manor's corridors felt narrower tonight, darker, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Ethan's heels echoed faintly against the polished wood, each click a reminder of how exposed he had become. Isabella walked ahead, her silhouette graceful and commanding, every step a rhythm he was desperate to match. "This wing," she said, turning slightly, "hasn't been used in years. It's perfect for testing her composure." Ethan followed, heart racing. Dusty curtains swayed in the breeze from cracked windows, and the faint scent of old wood mixed with candle wax. Each room was layered with shadows, mirrors, and antiques, reflections multiplying endlessly. The manor had become a labyrinth of temptation, fear, and suspense, a place where his transformation could be celebrated or exposed at any instant. "Walk through it as her," Isabella instructed. Not timidly. "Own the space, every inch." He stepped carefully, every motion exaggerated and deliberate, heels pressing into the floor, skirt swaying, wig adjusted. Each movement demanded awareness, precision, and a suspension of self-consciousness. Isabella's eyes never left him, noting each hesitation, each flicker of doubt. A sudden groan from the floor above made him freeze. Shadows shifted unnaturally in the candlelight. His breath caught. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Isabella's lips curved into a small, knowing smile.
Yes.
And that's exactly the point. Fear heightens her. Every sound is a reminder. The world can see you at any moment. And she must be ready. Ethan swallowed, tension crawling up his spine. The transformation wasn't just physical anymore. It was psychological, a test of nerves and composure. Every creaking floorboard, every distant whistle of wind became part of the challenge. One misstep could shatter the persona he had so carefully built. She stopped in front of a long mirror at the end of the hallway. "Stop," she said, and he froze mid-step. "Look at her. Remember who she is and who she wants to be. Then move forward." He adjusted his posture, rolling shoulders back, lifting his chin, and letting the sway of his hips become natural. For a moment, the fear melted into exhilaration. He was no longer just Ethan. He was someone else entirely, vulnerable yet commanding, delicate yet unshakable. But the manor had its own rhythm. A gust of wind rattled the windows, and a loose shutter banged against the wall. Ethan jumped, nearly losing balance in his heels. Isabella's eyes narrowed. "She must hold even when the world shakes," she said, a subtle edge in her voice. They moved into a sitting room lined with antique furniture. Isabella gestured to a chaise lounge. "Sit," she instructed, crossing her legs elegantly. But not casually. She doesn't sit. She commands presence even while resting. Ethan obeyed, the skirt brushing against his thighs. Every inch of him was alert, aware of the heels pressing, the wig shifting, the stockings clinging. Isabella circled him again, her gaze piercing, observing every movement, every nuance. "Good," she murmured, finally stepping back. "Now comes the real test." Ethan's stomach twisted. He had endured hours of posture drills, practice steps, and careful gestures, but what challenge could be next? Isabella retrieved a small handheld mirror. "You will face yourself," she said. "Not just in reflection, but in choice. She has to exist even when the shadows threaten her. You must decide, maintain her, or revert to him. There is no middle ground." The words hit him like a jolt. His reflection stared back, soft, feminine, vulnerable, beautiful. But in the shadows behind him, the old manor seemed to watch. He felt exposed, tested, and unsteady. The persona he had embraced was delicate, yet it demanded perfection. One falter, one lapse, and it could crumble. "Look at her closely," Isabella whispered. "She's fragile, yes, but strong. She has power when she embraces it. Every hesitation is weakness. Every doubt is exposure. You decide who she becomes now." Ethan's pulse raced. He focused on the mirror, letting the persona take precedence over fear. The reflection softened, yet strengthened under his gaze. He lifted a hand, tracing the cheek in the reflection as if reassuring her. The touch was tentative, intimate, a connection between what he had always hidden and what was now undeniable. A sudden noise, this time, unmistakably footsteps from below, made his heart leap. He froze, every nerve alight. Isabella's eyes flicked toward the staircase, then back at him. "She holds," she said calmly, "even when the world intrudes. That's the difference between exposure and mastery." Ethan exhaled slowly, letting tension release through the persona. His legs shifted slightly, heels adjusting, posture perfect, eyes meeting the reflection confidently. Fear hadn't vanished, it never would, but it had become a tool, shaping every movement, every expression. The room seemed to hum with suspense, shadows stretching along the walls. Ethan realized the manor itself had become an accomplice in his transformation, every creak, whisper, and flicker of light pushing him closer to complete surrender. Isabella smiled, satisfied. "Tonight," She has begun to own herself. But tomorrow brings new rooms, new shadows, and new observers. She will need more than beauty and poise. She will need courage, instinct, and willingness to risk exposure for what she desires. Ethan felt the weight of her words. This was no longer practice. The manor was a proving ground. His transformation wasn't just about appearance. It was about navigating fear, vulnerability, and the thrill of discovery under pressure. And deep inside, he welcomed it. The night pressed on, long shadows stretching across walls and mirrors. The woman in the reflection, fragile, daring, alive, was ready to face more. The manor's vast corridors seemed alive tonight, every shadow a reminder of the stakes. Ethan's heels clicked softly, rhythm echoing in the empty hallways. He felt more exposed than ever. Every step a delicate balance between grace and potential disaster. The persona he had been cultivating, soft, elegant, commanding in subtlety, was no longer a secret confined to the attic. It was being tested in spaces that felt alive, dangerous, unpredictable. Isabella's voice floated from behind him, low and deliberate. This hallway is narrow. Every movement matters. One misstep, one hesitation, and the manor sees it. Ethan's stomach tightened. The narrow passage magnified his awareness of every shift in posture, the sway of the skirt, the delicate pressure of heels on polished wood. He felt the persona flowing within him, but with every breath, there was tension, a fear of exposure, a fear that the persona might falter under the weight of expectation. "Stop," Isabella whispered suddenly. He froze mid-step. Her eyes glinted in the dim candlelight. "Turn slowly and hold your gaze." He obeyed, tilting his head, rolling shoulders back, letting the sway of the hips feel natural. The mirror at the end of the corridor reflected him in fragments, multiplying his reflection in a dizzying array of angles. He saw her, delicate, feminine, alive, but also vulnerable, trembling beneath the challenge. A faint creak echoed from somewhere deeper in the manor. Ethan stiffened. His heart pounded. Isabella stepped closer, brushing a finger along his arm. The touch was electric, grounding yet provocative. "Fear," she murmured, "is part of her. Harness it. Let it shape her poise." He swallowed, letting the fear sharpen his senses. Every shadow, every flicker of candlelight became part of the test. The manor itself seemed to conspire with Isabella, turning familiar spaces into obstacles, forcing him to navigate both physical and emotional vulnerability. "You're doing well," Isabella said, "but it's time to push further." She led him to a large window overlooking the estate grounds. The night was dark, the wind whipping through the cracked panes, rattling shutters. Ethan's reflection stared back at him, layered with the black of night and candlelight, almost unrecognizable. "Now," she said, "step onto the ledge." Ethan froze. The ledge was narrow, cold stone under his heels. Below, the drop was shallow, but enough to induce vertigo. His pulse raced. I can't." "You can," Isabella interrupted firmly.
She can.
"Focus on her. Ignore the fear. Trust her. Trust me." He stepped slowly, testing the weight of each foot, the sway of the skirt, the balance of heels. The reflection in the window seemed to move with him, doubling his form, fracturing it into a confident, elegant figure. A gust of wind pressed against him, tugging at the skirt and wig. His heart leapt, adrenaline flooding through him. Isabella reached out, steadying him with a hand at his back. "Every challenge shapes her," she said softly. "Every moment on the edge strengthens her identity. Do not falter." Breath hitching, he inched along the ledge, every sense alert. The world below seemed distant, abstract, while the reflection in the glass felt real, alive, watching him as much as he watched it. Vulnerable yet empowered, terrified yet exhilarated, he felt the persona, the woman he had become, firmly anchor within him. Suddenly, a branch scraped against the window. Ethan stumbled, nearly losing balance. The skirt shifted awkwardly, and for a heartbeat, he saw himself, not her. Panic surged. Isabella's hand tightened at his back. Hold her, she whispered. She survives the near fall. He exhaled sharply, regaining control, letting the fear transform into poise. The heels pressed firmly, the skirt swayed naturally, and the reflection in the window seemed to smile back at him, approving. The persona was tested and passed. Isabella pulled him back inside, guiding him toward the warmth of the sitting room. You see, she murmured, the edge exposes everything. Fear, beauty, strength. She is alive in every sense, even when threatened. Ethan sank into a chair, trembling slightly. Sweat dampened his forehead. The transformation wasn't just physical anymore. It was emotional, psychological, primal. The manor had become a crucible, and he had survived its first true test. But Isabella wasn't done. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of amusement and authority. Tomorrow brings more. Shadows, observers, choices that will challenge her further. She is only beginning to understand her power and her vulnerability. Ethan's reflection in the mirror across the room caught his eye. She looked back, flawless and trembling, delicate yet commanding. And for the first time, he realized that being her was no longer a secret indulgence. It was a force, one that demanded courage, presence, and surrender. The night stretched on, thick with anticipation. Outside, wind howled through the ancient trees, rattling windows. Inside, the manor whispered of secrets, shadows, and the next challenge that would force Ethan, and the woman he had become, to the edge once again. The manor was alive with shadows tonight, every flicker of candlelight twisting familiar hallways into something sinister, unpredictable. Ethan's heels clicked sharply against the polished floor as he followed Isabella through the vast corridors. The persona he had nurtured, the soft, elegant woman, was now being tested under pressure far greater than he had anticipated. This floor, Isabella whispered, glancing at the staircase leading to the upper wing, is full of observers. Not all of them are human, and not all of them are gentle. Ethan froze, heart hammering. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, doors opening and closing slightly ajar, shadows hinting at unseen eyes. The thrill of previous tests had been exhilarating, but now, danger mingled with desire, heightening every sensation. You must move carefully, Isabella continued, her hand brushing against his back as if to guide him and simultaneously assert control. Every misstep could reveal her or him. And once revealed, she let the sentence hang, a quiet threat that made his pulse spike. They entered the ballroom, vast and opulent, with mirrors lining the walls and a chandelier dangling precariously overhead. The reflection of the two of them multiplied infinitely, making Ethan's reflection everywhere and nowhere at once. He swallowed hard, feeling the full weight of vulnerability pressing down on him. Stand, Isabella said, motioning toward the center of the room. Feel the space. Own it. Every corner could hide someone or something. She must be flawless. Ethan took a deep breath, lifting his chin and straightening his posture. The heels pressed into his arches, the skirt swayed with careful rhythm, and the wig framed his face perfectly. For a moment, he felt empowered, confident in the persona he had embraced. But the manor was testing him relentlessly, and he knew the calm was temporary. A sudden noise, like footsteps brushing against the velvet carpet, echoed across the room. Ethan's knees nearly buckled. Isabella's gaze sharpened. Don't freeze. She doesn't freeze. She adapts, she commands, she survives. He exhaled slowly, channeling the persona fully. Each movement became intentional, precise. The tilt of the head, the sway of the hips, the flick of a wrist. The reflection in the mirrors fractured his image into dozens of angles, each showing a flawless woman. Yet every shadow held the thread of discovery, every distant sound a potential catastrophe. Isabella stepped closer, whispering, "Now speak. Tell the room who she is." Ethan's voice trembled at first, soft yet melodic, carrying the persona across the vast ballroom. I am her, and she is here." His words echoed, fragmented by the mirrors, amplifying his presence while simultaneously magnifying his fear. A sudden gust of wind from a cracked window rattled the chandelier above. Ethan froze, instinctively gripping the skirt. A mirror across the room reflected not only him but a shadow at the edge, a figure moving slowly, deliberately. Panic surged. "Focus," Isabella whispered sharply, pressing lightly on his back. "She doesn't flinch. She dominates. Remember who she is." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The shadow grew closer, its movement deliberate, almost stalking. Every muscle in his body tensed, the high heels digging into the floor as if rooting him in place. The skirt swayed naturally, but his hands trembled. The woman in the mirror was poised, elegant, but the man behind the persona quivered with fear. Suddenly, the figure stepped into the light, a neighbor from the estate, curious about the candlelight flickering through the ballroom windows. Ethan's heart skipped. He hadn't expected anyone, and the realization that he might be discovered sent waves of panic through him. Isabella's hand tightened on his back.
Move.
"Don't let fear control her. She acts." Summoning every ounce of courage, Ethan took a deliberate step forward, hips swaying, voice confident. "Good evening," he said softly, letting the persona carry charm and authority. The neighbor blinked, momentarily confused, then smiled politely, assuming it was some grand costume or eccentric display. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him, but the adrenaline kept him trembling. "You see?" Isabella murmured, eyes glinting. "Exposure tests her. Pressure refines her. The higher the stakes, the stronger she becomes." The room seemed to shrink around him now, filled with reflections, shadows, and whispers of possibility. Every step was a performance, every glance a challenge, and every breath a gamble. The persona, delicate, elegant, alive, was now inseparable from the man beneath it, yet still entirely distinct, demanding attention and respect. Isabella stepped back, letting him feel the weight of solitude and scrutiny. "She's alive," she said softly. "Not because she is perfect, but because she survives. Every fear, every risk, every heartbeat builds her strength." Ethan's reflection in the mirrors stared back, trembling yet radiant. The transformation was no longer just external, it had seeped into his very core. And as the shadows shifted, the manner whispering secrets around him, he understood that this was only the beginning. The true test, the real danger, had yet to arrive. The cafe was bustling, a mix of afternoon sunlight and the hum of conversation. Ethan had never felt so exposed. The persona, soft, feminine, and commanding, was now forced out of the private safety of home and into a real-world stage. He could feel every eye on him, though most passed him without notice. The challenge wasn't just the heels or the skirt, it was every tiny social interaction, every potential slip that could reveal him. Isabella sat across the table, perfectly poised, a smirk playing on her lips. She has to walk, speak, and act as herself. No hesitation. "No mistakes," she said softly. Ethan swallowed hard, adjusting the hem of his skirt. The warmth of the sun made him self-conscious, the light revealing every contour of his delicate outfit. His high heels clicked against the tiled floor as he stood to approach the counter, voice soft yet clear. "Excuse me, could I have a latte?" The barista raised an eyebrow, a faint grin spreading across her face, but there was no judgment, just polite acknowledgement. Ethan exhaled slowly, relief mixing with adrenaline. Isabella leaned forward. Now navigate the line. She must remain composed. Every glance, every gesture is being evaluated by everyone around her. He stepped forward, heels steady but pulse racing. The line moved slowly, giving him plenty of time to second-guess himself. A man behind him coughed loudly. Ethan froze mid-step, suddenly hyper-aware of the sway of his hips, the tilt of his head. The persona demanded grace, but fear tightened his chest. "Breathe," Isabella whispered, hand brushing lightly against his wrist. She holds control by owning the moment, even when threatened. The man behind him shifted impatiently, muttering something under his breath. Ethan's hands shook slightly as he held his wallet, every instinct telling him to retreat, to hide. Instead, he smiled politely, handed over his money, and collected the latte with careful precision. The persona felt alive, almost untouchable, yet every fiber of his body screamed tension. "Good," Isabella murmured, eyes gleaming. "Now interact with someone she doesn't know." Confidence, charm, subtlety. She must remain perfect under scrutiny. Ethan scanned the room. A young woman at a nearby table glanced at him, smiling politely. He approached, posture straight, hips swaying naturally. "Hi," he said softly. "Do you mind if I sit here? Everywhere else is full." The woman nodded, and he slid into the chair, adjusting his skirt as if it were second nature. Conversation flowed. Light, friendly, casual, but every word was a tightrope. His voice remained melodic, gestures delicate yet assured. Every laugh, every tilt of the head, every sip of coffee became a rehearsal of his identity, a proof of mastery over fear. A sudden crash of dishes from the counter made him jump. Heat surged to his cheeks, a visible shiver running through him. He caught himself in the reflection of a nearby window, his reflection perfectly feminine, yet every instinct screamed danger. Isabella leaned closer. She thrives on risk. Every moment like this strengthens her. She must feel the thrill and hold composure simultaneously. Ethan nodded subtly, swallowing the lump in his throat. He had navigated the cafe without exposure, maintained his persona flawlessly, and faced real-world scrutiny for the first time. The experience left him trembling, exhilarated, and undeniably alive. "Tomorrow," Isabella said softly as they stepped outside, "we will push her further. Crowds, strangers, unavoidable scrutiny. She is only beginning to understand the strength of her presence." Ethan's heels clicked against the sidewalk, confident yet aware of every pair of eyes that might notice him. The persona wasn't just safe within his home anymore. It existed in the world, fragile yet powerful, constantly tested. And somewhere deep inside, he realized he wanted it, every risk, every glance, every moment of potential exposure. The streets were alive with neon lights, the smell of street food, and the chatter of strangers. Ethan had never walked through a crowded night market like this dressed as her before. The skirt brushed against his thighs with each step, heels tapping unevenly on uneven cobblestones, but the persona demanded confidence. Every glance from passers-by was a test, every casual remark a potential trap. "Remember," Isabella whispered, walking beside him. "She is visible now. Every movement counts. One wrong step, and the illusion collapses." Ethan's pulse raced as he navigated the stalls, the aroma of grilled meats and sweet pastries mingling in the humid air. Vendors called out prices, and the crowd jostled him lightly. Panic threatened, but he forced a smile, keeping the persona steady. The wig shifted slightly with the movement, and he adjusted it with practiced elegance, aware that every detail mattered. A group of teenagers laughed loudly behind him, pointing at his outfit. Ethan froze, heels threatening to slip on a stray puddle. The persona demanded composure. Fear whispered for retreat. Isabella's hand brushed his back. She stands tall. Fear is part of her, not the master. Own it. Taking a deep breath, Ethan lifted his chin and continued walking. He passed a vendor selling masks and paused, curiosity sparking. "Can I try one?" he asked softly, his voice carrying the persona's gentle confidence. The vendor nodded, handing him a delicate mask adorned with feathers. Ethan placed it over his eyes, the soft brush of feathers against his skin electrifying and oddly comforting. He felt shielded, almost invisible, yet the crowd continued moving around him. The mask gave him power. He could observe without being fully seen, but it also heightened his vulnerability. Suddenly, a man bumped into him sharply, startling him. The wig tilted precariously, the skirt swaying, and for a heartbeat, Ethan feared exposure. But he steadied himself, hands pressing lightly against his hips to regain balance. The man muttered an apology and disappeared into the crowd, oblivious. "You see," Isabella murmured.
She adapts.
She survives. Every threat, every intrusion strengthens her. The market is chaos, yet she moves through it unbroken. Ethan's reflection caught in a polished window. The woman staring back was delicate, elegant, and poised, but the storm of the market pressed on her, a test of nerve and grace. The heat of embarrassment, the thrill of attention, and the fear of being discovered surged simultaneously. A sudden commotion erupted near a nearby stall, a vendor shouting, a fight breaking out over a mistaken order. The crowd surged, and Ethan felt himself pushed sideways. His heels caught on a loose stone, and he stumbled slightly, heart hammering. The mask slipped, revealing a hint of his features beneath. Isabella stepped forward instantly, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Recover. She never falters. One slip does not define her. Ethan straightened, heels pressing firmly, wig adjusted, skirt swaying naturally. The persona returned stronger than before, deflecting fear with poise and a soft, captivating smile. He navigated the crowd with elegance, each step a quiet assertion of control amid chaos. As they exited the market into a quieter street, Ethan felt the weight of adrenaline fading, replaced by a rush of exhilaration. He had faced the unpredictability of strangers, the scrutiny of a crowd, and the threat of exposure, and survived. Isabella's eyes sparkled. Tonight, she has conquered visibility. She is no longer hidden, no longer safe, and yet more powerful than ever. The final test approaches, one that will demand everything she has learned. Ethan's reflection in a street lamp shimmered, distorted by movement, but unmistakably her. Vulnerable, beautiful, commanding, and fully alive. He had become more than a secret, more than a persona. He had become someone who could face the world in full. The city's grand art gallery glittered with chandeliers and polished marble floors. Ethan had never imagined attending such a formal event dressed as her. The gala was alive with elite guests, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, a perfect stage for exposure. The persona demanded perfection, poise, elegance, and absolute composure. Isabella's hand rested lightly on his back as they entered. Every pair of eyes is a threat and an audience, she whispered. She must move with purpose. Confidence will shield her. Ethan's heels clicked across the marble, each step amplified in the cavernous room. The dress he wore clung to him perfectly, the fabric flowing with each movement, the shimmer catching the soft lighting. His reflection in the mirrored walls multiplied him, a delicate figure navigating a sea of sophistication. A group of socialites turned, whispering and glancing curiously at him. Ethan's pulse quickened. He felt every heartbeat, every flutter of nerves, yet he maintained the posture Isabella had drilled into him. Each motion was precise. The tilt of his head, the sway of his hips, the placement of his hands on the clutch. Suddenly, a familiar voice called from across the room. A colleague from work, someone who knew Ethan intimately as himself, was approaching, laughing with friends. Panic surged through him. Exposure wasn't just possible, it was imminent. Isabella leaned close. She doesn't freeze. She engages, she distracts, she thrives. Use charm, wit, and grace. Do not let fear dominate. Ethan straightened, letting the persona flow fully. He smiled, a soft, captivating smile, and approached the colleague with measured elegance. "Evening," he said, voice smooth, melodic, confident. The colleague blinked, taken aback by the transformation but masking surprise with politeness. They exchanged small talk, questions about art and music. Ethan's every gesture was deliberate, fluid, graceful. The persona controlled him, turning fear into magnetism. Each compliment he offered, each laugh he allowed, strengthened the illusion. But the gala wasn't without hazards. A server carrying a tray of champagne wobbled nearby, nearly spilling on Ethan's delicate outfit. He pivoted slightly, heels catching the edge of the rug. The persona faltered for an instant, heart lurching. Isabella's eyes caught his immediately, a silent reminder. Recover. Ethan inhaled deeply, regaining balance. He adjusted the clutch, allowed a slight sway in his hips, and continued the conversation as if nothing had happened. The persona returned, stronger, commanding attention and projecting elegance. Suddenly, a photographer approached, camera flashing unexpectedly. Ethan froze mid-step, a high note of panic threatening to surface. Isabella touched his arm lightly. Pose. She thrives in the spotlight. Every risk is a stage. Ethan lifted his chin, smiled naturally, and posed. The flash illuminated him, but instead of fear, the persona radiated grace. The photographer blinked, impressed. Ethan exhaled slowly, heart pounding, feeling a rush of exhilaration. The colleague excused themselves, moving away, leaving Ethan in the middle of the room. The persona shimmered fully in the ambient light, the reflection in the polished floors showing her elegance. The danger hadn't passed. Any new interaction could unravel the facade, but he had survived another exposure, another test of nerve, and another demonstration of mastery. Isabella's hand on his shoulder guided him toward a balcony overlooking the city. Tonight, she said softly, she has faced scrutiny, risk, and temptation. She has navigated chaos and charm. The final challenge will demand everything, every nerve, every instinct, every ounce of courage. Ethan's reflection in the balcony glass shimmered against the city lights. He saw her clearly, delicate, poised, commanding, yet aware of vulnerability beneath it all. Every trial had pushed him further, shaping the persona into someone untouchable, yet entirely human. And deep inside, he knew the ultimate confrontation, the one that could shatter everything, was approaching. The luxury hotel room felt simultaneously inviting and dangerous. Ethan had followed Isabella into the suite, unaware of the final test she had planned. Outside, the city lights glittered, casting long shadows across the plush carpet and gilded furniture. Inside, the silence was heavy, charged with expectation. Tonight, Isabella said, her voice low and measured, she faces the ultimate challenge. It's intimate, personal, unavoidable. She will be alone, and yet under scrutiny. Ethan's heels clicked softly on the hardwood floor as he circled the room, adjusting the skirt and checking the wig. The persona, graceful, feminine, assertive, flowed through him, but tension knotted his stomach. Every detail mattered. The way he moved, the tilt of his head, the subtle sway of his hips. One misstep could ruin everything. A knock at the door startled him. His pulse spiked. Isabella's eyes gleamed knowingly. Someone unexpected, she murmured. She must maintain composure, elegance, and presence. No faltering. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he moved to the door. Opening it revealed the hotel manager, smiling politely but clearly curious. I'm sorry, the manager said, but there's a problem with your reservation. Could you step into the lobby? Fear surged. Exposure wasn't just possible, it was imminent. The persona demanded grace, but every instinct screamed to flee. Isabella's hand rested lightly on his back, grounding him. She does not flee. She commands the situation. Charm, elegance, confidence. Do not let panic dominate. Ethan exhaled slowly, letting the persona take over. Of course, he said softly, voice melodic and controlled. I'll follow you shortly. His movements were deliberate, measured, each step precise. The manager nodded, unaware of the tension, and began leading the way toward the elevator. Inside, the confined space amplified the stakes. Ethan's reflection in the polished metal walls stared back at him, delicate, poised, feminine, yet aware of vulnerability. The persona had to hold under pressure, maintaining composure despite the close quarters, the curious glances, and the silent judgment that seemed to radiate from every surface. A sudden elevator jolt made him stumble. The heels clicked sharply, skirts swaying awkwardly. Panic threatened, but Isabella's whispered words grounded him. Recover. She never falters. She rises stronger after every challenge. Ethan adjusted his posture, pressed a hand lightly against the railing, and let the persona flow fully. Each sway, tilt, and smile projected confidence, charm, and control. The elevator doors opened, revealing the hotel lobby bathed in warm light and filled with strangers. The manager turned to speak to a receptionist, giving Ethan a moment to compose himself. He moved through the crowd with deliberate elegance, aware of every eye, every whisper, every step that could betray him. The persona navigated the chaos effortlessly, commanding attention without drawing suspicion. Suddenly, a familiar voice called from across the lobby. Ethan froze. A colleague, someone who knew him intimately as himself, was approaching, smiling and chatting casually with friends. Exposure wasn't just possible, it was imminent. Isabella's hand brushed his back. Charm, wit, grace. Distract. Survive. Ethan's pulse thundered. The persona fully activated, voice soft, gestures fluid, hips swaying naturally. He approached the group, greeting them warmly, laughing lightly, deflecting questions, all while maintaining the delicate balance of elegance and secrecy. A camera flash from a nearby event photographer startled him, illuminating every detail. The heels threatened to catch on the carpet, skirt shifting unnaturally. Panic surged. This could expose everything. Yet the persona held firm, radiant, commanding. The moment passed without disaster, leaving a rush of exhilaration in its wake. As the manager finally led him back toward the hotel suite, Ethan's knees trembled slightly from adrenaline. Isabella's eyes glinted. She has survived the public, exposure, scrutiny, and pressure. But the final moment, the truth, awaits in the room. What she finds may change everything. Inside the suite, Ethan paused, catching his reflection in the tall mirror. Vulnerable, delicate, commanding, alive. The persona stared back at him, fully realized. Yet the fear lingered. Outside the room, footsteps approached, deliberate and slow. Someone had entered the hotel, without warning. Ethan's breath caught. Isabella's voice was barely a whisper. She faces the ultimate uncertainty now. One knock, one glance, one mistake, and everything could unravel. The doorknob turned slowly. A shadow filled the doorway. Heart hammering, Ethan froze, heels poised, skirt flowing perfectly, but panic and anticipation collided in his chest. The persona braced for the confrontation. And then the door creaked open. The shadow lingered in the doorway, a silent, heavy presence that made Ethan's chest tighten. His heels clicked softly against the polished floor as he instinctively took a step back, skirt swaying gracefully, but his pulse raced uncontrollably. The persona, the elegant, delicate woman he had become, demanded composure, yet every nerve screamed danger. "Remember," Isabella whispered from behind him, barely audible. "She controls the room. Every breath, every motion. Fear is her tool, not her master." Ethan forced himself to straighten, lift his chin, and let the persona shine. The reflection in the mirror revealed someone poised, radiant, commanding attention even in this tension-soaked moment. But the intruder, someone unknown, deliberate, stepped closer, filling the doorway. "Hello," a voice said softly measured, with an edge that made Ethan's stomach knot. "I think we need to talk." Ethan's mind raced. Who was this person? How had they found him here? Every instinct screamed to retreat, to run, but the persona demanded grace and courage. He exhaled slowly, letting the soft, melodic voice flow naturally. "Of course," he said. "Please come in." The intruder stepped fully into the room, the lights catching a sharp smile that didn't reach the eyes. Ethan's heels clicked lightly as he moved to adjust the skirt, subtly shifting to block the body, to create an air of confidence. Every step, every gesture, had to be perfect. One misstep could expose everything, to his intruder, to Isabella, to himself. "I didn't expect to see this," the intruder said, gaze flicking quickly to the reflection in the mirror, then back to Ethan. There was a pause heavy with tension. "You've changed." Ethan swallowed, forcing a soft laugh. Yes, change can be unexpected. The words were harmless, but his mind raced, searching for composure in the storm of fear and thrill. The intruder's eyes narrowed slightly, as if sensing more than what was spoken. Every subtle movement Ethan made, the tilt of the head, the sway of the hips, the careful placement of hands, was scrutinized. Panic pressed at him, yet the persona held firm, radiant and elegant. "Interesting," the intruder said slowly. "Very interesting." They stepped closer, and Ethan's reflection in the mirror showed a woman trembling only slightly, yet fully commanding the space. Suddenly, a faint creak came from the balcony window. The intruder's attention shifted for a heartbeat. That was all Ethan needed, heart hammering, every nerve alive, to regain a fraction of control. He tilted his head, smiled softly, and spoke, voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Shall we sit?" The intruder paused, then nodded, eyes still sharp and calculating. Ethan led them toward the plush chairs, moving with elegance, heels clicking softly, skirts swaying naturally. Every gesture projected confidence, yet beneath it all, the fear burned brightly. As they sat, the intruder leaned back, studying him. "You're different," they said, "but there's something fragile beneath the surface. Something that could break easily." Ethan forced a subtle smile, keeping the persona intact. "Fragility can be strength," he replied softly. The words were true in more ways than he realized. The delicate balance between the woman he had become and the man beneath it was razor-thin. The room grew tense, filled with unspoken threats and curiosity. Outside, city lights cast shadows through the blinds, fragmenting the reflections in the mirror. Ethan's heart raced. Would they notice the truth? Would the persona survive this intrusion? Isabella's voice echoed softly in his mind. "She thrives under pressure. Every threat strengthens her.
Do not falter."
And then, a sudden movement at the doorway, a second shadow, deliberate, silent. Ethan's breath caught. Another intruder? Or someone else entirely? He froze, skirts swaying slightly, heels pressing into the carpet, persona fully alert. The first intruder's gaze flicked toward the new figure, eyes narrowing in recognition. Ethan's pulse surged. His carefully constructed persona might be on the brink of collapse. "Wait," the intruder said sharply, voice cutting through the tension. "You didn't tell me there was someone else." Ethan's mind raced. Every instinct screamed danger. One false move, one hesitation, and everything, the persona, the secret, the control, could unravel. Isabella's whispered guidance echoed again. She controls the space. Every breath, every glance, every heartbeat is hers.
Do not break.
The second shadow stepped forward, the room now thick with suspense. Ethan's reflection fragmented in the mirror. Delicate, poised, trembling, commanding, all at once. And then, the door clicked shut behind them. Ethan's heels stopped moving. Skirts swaying subtly, he glanced at Isabella. Her eyes gleamed knowingly.
The persona was ready.
The danger was real. The next moment would define everything. And just as the intruders closed the distance, the story cut off.